Hi, Alan Stratton from Woodturns. In the last video I showed using this bandsaw jig. It's a sled jig. And this promised a more detail about this jig. This is actually the latest in a long series of jigs that I can use for cutting projects on a bandsaw. Why cut a project on the bandsaw? Well, this is for wood turners because I don't know who else would be actually wanting to mount a project that is on a chuck or a spindle onto and cut it on the bandsaw. So this is it exclusively for wood turners, but here we go. And I've got to give some credit to a presentation I saw at the Rocky Mountain Woodturners in Loveland, Colorado last year. It was inspiring. The difference is that he salvaged a spindle out of an old lathe, and I don't really want to go buy a lathe to get a spindle or have one made, but I came up with another idea that I think works as well. So essentially what this is this part here holds the chuck. I use a lot of threaded wood faceplates, but the problem is you've got to be able to fasten it to it. Previous versions of this sled have used a knob that goes through a 3/4 inch piece of wood to hold the chuck or the faceplate, either one will do, through the piece of wood. However, wanted a little bit more mass over here to support it. So in this case, I said, okay, why not use the chuck hub, but a long bolt? So it goes through here and then has another wood back here in order to support it, give it a little bit more robustness. And then that bolt goes through and then gets attached at the back, knob that cinches the whole thing together. Align it this way, and let's put the faceplate on. I've gone ahead and made index marks at 15 degrees apart so that I can, if I need them, I can use them. So this is the mount piece. After using it a few times, I would go ahead and extend this further out. The critical measure here depends on the capacity of your bandsaw. My capacity is 10 inches max, and so I put this bolt height at 5 inches, or half the maximum that I could do. But I also put a couple more holes in here so that if I could move it down to expose the blade a little bit less, I could. This is actually what is holding the work. Then, as a nod to John Beaver and his wave bowls, I put some pivot holes in here on the bottom. These I use a offset spacer in order to use a 3/4 inch here, which is what I wanted. I had to buy a 3/4 and a 3/8 that are concentric. So this goes here and can go any one of those holes. Cinch that up, and then the first cinch point is that to the sled, which, by the way, the base of the sled uses 3 parallel universal T-tracks set into the sled. This one is centered so that I can center it. These others are 10 inches apart and 5 inches from that. On the back side of that is a miter to ride the miter slot on the bandsaw. So this all goes together. This one going into the center slot. The universal T-track can accommodate both 1/4 inch bolts and 5/16 flange bolts. So this one in the center is a 1/4 inch. Makes it a little bit more ticky to the T-track because it's a little bit harder to get in, but that's okay. Survivable. And then this can be slid around here and positioned where it needs to be. Now, in addition to this, the other T-tracks, when you're doing straight cuts, I used some pull downs that can be purchased that cinch that down. Previous versions tried to bolt directly to this wood base. They were never in the right spots. So they help hold it down so that this whole thing can traverse the bandsaw table. Now, one other feature that I was able to incorporate using this design is when I'm making a Celtic knot and making a slot, or if I'm making a wave bowl like John Beaver does, I could loosen this, put in a spacer, and put it back in the same spot, cinch it up very tight again, and then I would be able to cut an offset to the original cut perfectly parallel on a curve. So with that, then, this is an example of a curve cut like you would make with a John Beaver with a slice out. And this one is a knot for like a Celtic knot, just a straight slice out of it. Then if you are to making a freehand curve, well, that's less technical. Just make it so that you can cut it through, or freehand straight, just cinch it down and shove it through. So those are less technical, if you will. So let's show how this is to be worked in real life. One change I've already noticed that I would make on this is to extend this top of this, the base of this sled, out to about maybe a little bit further, a couple inches further than the maximum protrusion with your chuck or your faceplate. If you're cutting curves or angles, you might eventually trim some of that off, but no matter, it provides a little bit more stability while you're cutting. So let's do it. For parallel curve cuts, first determine where the top of the curve will be. In this example, the top of the curve will be 1/2 inch from the top. Of course, yours will be different. Second, measure to offset. I'm using a straight board and measuring from the edge of the sled to the back edge of the straight board. 3. Move the top portion of the sled to be against the straight board. Tighten the pivot knob. 4. Remove the straight board so that the top portion can rotate. 5. Position the sled at the beginning of the cut. 6. Clamp the sled to the bandsaw table. 7. Make the outer cut. Cut slowly with a tight blade. 8. Without adjusting anything else, loosen the knob at the back of the sled. Insert appropriate spacer. Note that you need to allow for the saw curve also. 9. Cinch the knob tightly. 10. Make the inner cut. Cut slowly with a tight blade. My saw blade has a kink, so the cut is a little bouncy. I'm also adding more wood to the front of the sled. For parallel angle cuts, such as for my Celtic knot vases, 1. Position the wood according to the outer edge of the desired cut and the angle that you want. I rarely use an exact angle. Instead, I eyeball it. 2. With the clamps in the outer universal T-track, clamp the upper sled portion to the base. 3. Make the outer cut. Cut slowly with a tight blade. 4. Without adjusting anything else, loosen the knob at the back of the sled. Insert the appropriate spacer. Note that you need to allow for the saw curve also. 5. Cinch the knob tightly. 6. Make the inner cut. Cut slowly with a tight blade. Again, my saw blade has a kink, so the cut is a bit bouncy. I'm also adding more wood to the front of the sled. I need to replace the blade. For a straight cut, just lock down the sled parallel to the blade and go for it. Again, cut slowly. In this case, there is no center cavity, therefore my cut speed is extremely slow. For a freehand cut, reverse the bottom sled to put the miter guide out of the way and go for it. Again, slow cuts. How about a tour of the sled? First, instead of scavenging for a used lathe spindle, I have designed and 3D printed a spindle hub that matches the lathe spindle threads. This design incorporates a 3/8 inch hex bolt for strength, and in this case, for the core that provides support and adjustment. Axminster sells a steel one, but I do not know of other vendors except for my Etsy site as Woodturn's Tools. Earlier version of this sled used a 3D printed knob with threads that match my lathe spindle. This knob is designed to hold a chuck or faceplate to a piece of 3/4 inch wood. This is still available at my Etsy site for simpler jigs. The hub is mounted to a 3/4 inch plywood disc. I have burned marks at 15-degree increments. These index marks are useful in my Celtic knot vases where I make multiple cuts at various rotation angles. The core for securing and adjusting the rotation is a long 3/8 inch hex bolt. For my sled, this bolt is 7 inches long, but could be longer as long as there is enough exposed threads to accommodate the knob and the offset spacer. The project wood is mounted to a chuck or a threaded faceplate. My preference is the threaded faceplate, but I do use my chuck occasionally. My sliding platform base is 14 inches wide with a universal T-track at center and near the edges. The center T-track holds the rotation component. The outer T-tracks hold the hold-down clamps. The T-track and clamps I purchased online at Home Depot. There are many sources of the T-track and clamps, but be careful since universal T-track is not universal in size. I'm using 3/8 inch deep and a 3/4 inch wide T-track that inserts nicely into 3/4 inch thick plywood. My sliding platform base is at least 12 inches long. 14 may be better in my next version. It does not need to be too long since it is hanging out over beyond the bandsaw table anyway. By the way, knobs are available from a wide variety of sources, or make your own for a nut and then some wood like I used to do. But since I have a 3D printer, I print mine now, incorporating a steel nut. On the bottom side, I fastened a wood strip to fit the miter slot. This is parallel to the edge next to the saw blade. The distance is determined by the model of your bandsaw. The upper sled section was 12 inches long with 2 uprights. After filming this video, I added another 4 inches to the front side. This will stabilize the project more. I expect that I will gradually saw off some of this additional length in use depending on the project requirements and the chuck sizes. I drilled a variety of pivot holes that control the cut radius when cutting curves. Straight cuts do not need this pivot, and it then functions only as an additional clamp. My uprights are about 6 inches high. The primary axis hole is positioned 5 inches from the very bottom of the sled or top of the bandsaw table. In other words, don't make the mistake of measuring from the bottom of the upper section of wood. The axis hole at 5 inches accommodates my maximum saw-in diameter of 10 inches. This, however, will vary with your bandsaw. Other holes at lower heights may be possible depending on the size of the disc that the hub is mounted to. There's nothing much special about this piece that goes between the 2 uprights. I needed something that would hold the uprights apart and resisting the pressure from tightening the bolt while still being adjustable. The length depends on the size of the bolt selected. The thickness of the uprights, the thickness of the front disc that holds the hub, determine the appropriate length before fastening the rear upright. Note that there is a cutout in the back upright to allow for more pivot positions. Now to start assembling the upper sled. The spindle hub is mounted to the front round disc. In my next iteration, this disc will be 3/4 inch less in radius to accommodate the extended front section and still provide height adjustment. The bolt goes through the hub, the disc, the front upright, the spacer cylinder, and the rear upright. When constructing this, I fastened the front upright and then determined the length of the spacer cylinder. After completing the spacer cylinder, I could then fasten the back upright. In use, the chuck or threaded faceplate is mounted on the spindle hub. When I first made my sled, I searched for a 3/4 by 3/4 steel cylinder with a 5/16 inch bore for a bolt, but could not find any standard hardware. Instead, I found a 1/4 inch hex bolt that still works with the T-track, a 3/8 by 3/4 small cylinder with a 1/4 inch bore, a 3/4 by 3/4 cylinder with a 3/8 inch bore, a small washer, a large washer, and a knob. I needed 3/4 inch diameter cylinder so that I could put a washer on top to cinch the pivot without clamping the wood. The 2 cylinders are only because I could not find one 3/4 by 3/4 cylinder with either a 1/4 or 5/6 inch bore. When used as a pivot, the smaller washer is below the large washer so that there is no clamping pressure. When not being used as a pivot, the larger washer is below the smaller washer so that the larger washer provides clamping action. I printed my knob to be low profile, but you can make your own if you cannot find one commercially. When fully assembled, the side clamps can slide to multiple positions to allow any cut angle. This board facilitates positioning the top sled parallel to the bottom portion when needed. The long edges are parallel to each other. Ignore the 2 holes at the top. Initially, I drilled multiple holes for flexibility, but then realized that I needed an open-ended slot to be able to remove the clamping bolts without dismantling the sled and destroying the positioning. So I sawed out the 2 holes on each side to form a slot. The final accessory is a spacer. The spacer plus a saw kerf determines the amount of wood removed when making parallel curve or straight cuts. This is so that I can replace the removed wood exactly with my new decorative element. These are easily made, but yes, I 3D printed mine because I could. In use, please exercise extreme caution to keep body parts away from the saw blade. After all, bandsaws are used by butchers to break down animal carcasses. Do not butcher yourself, but do make enjoyable turned projects. Please wear your full face shield here also. Your suggestions for improving the sled will be appreciated. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my website as well as on YouTube. Please spread the word by telling your friends about my weekly videos, and I do appreciate your comments and questions.